Coming up on Tech News Today, Zune dies one more time. Probably not for the last time. Google Drive's terms of disservice. Should you be afraid to store your files there? And Valve coming to Linux, maybe. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, April 25th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Meet face-to-face from anywhere in the world with GoToMeeting with HD Faces. For your free 30-day trial, visit GoToMeeting.com, promo code TNT. And by Ford, featuring voice-activated Sync App Link. Now you can control select smartphone apps with your voice, helping keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. Learn more about the technologies Ford is bringing to its vehicles at Ford.com/technology. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And we're very happy to have along with us today David Pierce, reviews editor from The Verge, and somebody who actually knows Iyaz Akhtar and still came on the show. Thanks, David.
Look at that.
It was hard, I'll be honest, but I'm happy to be here.
No, you guys worked together at PC Mag.
Yeah. Dave was in the labs. I was a writer, and I would, because my writing gig was so easy, I would be in the labs all day because they had the coolest toys. And David always had the best things for home theater, so I would bother him the most.
Well, now you're reviewing things at The Verge, so very cool.
Yes.
Good to have you on the show. Nice to meet you. And we're going to start off with a little Apple news about the WWDC.
Yeah, if you were on the West Coast, you probably missed your opportunity to buy tickets to WWDC. It was announced that the show will take place June 11th through the 15th in San Francisco, which is right around the time it was expected, but it's official. Tickets went on sale early this morning.
Yeah, the email went out last night.
And sold out within 2 hours.
So if you didn't check your email last night, if you're an Apple developer and you're on the West Coast, you're upset today.
Yeah, in fact, I'm thinking, I wonder if there's some sort of setting aside for at least some trusted companies who have been WWDC faithfuls on the West Coast, because you'd really feel shut out otherwise, as long as you stick to some sort of a regular seeping schedule. And maybe if you're a developer, it's not so much of an issue. But tickets for WWDC 2012 are $1,599 per ticket, so $1,600. They are not cheap, although they are doing things a little bit differently this year. For example, developers as young as 13 can now attend, as long as either a parent or guardian that is also a registered developer purchase the ticket for them. Okay. So not just purchase it, but will be their chaperone.
Yeah.
Yes. Apple also is offering a limited number of scholarships for young developers. That deadline is actually May 2nd, so it's coming right up. We'll have a direct link to that in our show notes if you're interested. According to Apple's new policies, WWDC tickets, including activation codes, are non-transferable and may not be sold, resold, or auctioned in any way. They pretty much want to keep scalpers from selling these at a huge markup, which is something that they've had an issue with in the past. This thing sold out in 2 hours. Last year, 2011, sold out in about 8 hours. 2010, I think it was about a week. So I don't know. I mean, there's more interest than ever. Now, if you're an organization and you think, well, wait a second, what if we want to send Iyaz and at the last minute he can't go and we want to send Tom? That's okay. Apple says you have to let us know that you're doing this beforehand. But if you're an organization, you can buy up to 5 tickets. If you already did, you can't anymore. And if you've got 5 people who are going as representatives, as long as you have Apple's approval, you can change that at the last minute. But no refunds or returns. If you lose your pass, you can get another one as long as you can pony up another $1,600.
It only costs you $1,600 to replace it.
So they're not going to take away your seat, but they don't want to hear it.
They don't have an e-ticket?
No.
Come on.
I know.
Could you even replace the ticket if they're sold out? I mean, if there are no more tickets, you lose it, you're out, right? Or is that you're going to have to explain that you don't
show your ID? I guess I don't know.
It just seems a little.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Yeah, credit card attached to buying the ticket, I guess. It's not that they don't want you to go, but yeah, they're trying to cut down on a lot of the scalping that's gone on in the past. Also, something that's going on somewhat separately is nominations for the 2012 Apple Design Awards. This is for pretty much just great apps that are either in the App Store or the Mac App Store, by May 1st, 2012 to qualify. You can nominate your app as long as it's live. Apple apps don't necessarily have to be nominated in order to win an Apple Design Award, but you can certainly put it in front of some eyeballs, and then the winning apps will be announced at this year's WWDC as well.
It's always interesting to see who nabs those awards at the WWDC.
Yeah, they're usually really great apps, too.
Any bets, David, on what kind of announcement we might hear? Do you have any sense? I mean, it's all rumors at this point, obviously, but we're going to hear iPhone?
Yeah. Unfortunately, probably not. This seems to be much more of a software show for Apple at this point, and everything we're hearing seems to be that the iPhone is going to continue to be kind of a fall release. But this has typically been where we see, new iOS, some really cool new features, and it's neat that they're doing like a software-specific show just because they're developers, and it could actually be really neat stuff as they move forward.
So we'll definitely hear about Mountain Lion. That's pretty much for sure. And I guess the next version of iOS, which will be interesting as well. Let's move on to Microsoft readying the cross-platform killing of Zune.
Yeah, kind of. Well, The Verge reports that Microsoft's going to offer a new music streaming service, which just kind of sounds like Zune Pass, but rebranded and for free. It's going to work on Windows 8, iOS, Android, Xbox, because the service is working in a browser. No plugins for your browser to actually make this work. It's going to have Facebook integration for playback and track sharing. There's also going to be an iTunes Match-like service, so you can scan your library and you'll be able to get access to your files that way. The service right now is codenamed Woodstock and would debut in a sneak peek form at E3, which is like just around the corner. But we'll have the final branding of Xbox because Microsoft and the Zune branding seems to be moving away. But
so if I'm using it on my iPad, it'll be called Xbox?
Yes, just
so I'll be able to get Xbox on my iPad.
You can get Xbox Live right now on your iPad.
I guess that's
so
true.
that's not unfamiliar for Microsoft. But the official version of it is expected to launch when Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8 devices launch, and that's still rumored to be somewhere around December. Microsoft again is pushing away from Zune for Windows Phone because this stuff's official. The Zune desktop no longer will handle Windows Phone apps. You can get OS updates still on the Zune desktop, and you need that because if you want to get app updates, you have to run Tango or higher at this point. So Microsoft's moving away from Zune as a Windows Phone manager. It looks like they're moving away from Zune as a music manager with this new Xbox, this Woodstock, codename Woodstock. But again, it sounds like the Zune Music Pass that they do have right now, that's $10 a month. You get unlimited songs, but if this is free, this is like a competition for Spotify and RDO and everybody else.
What is free? Wait a minute.
If Woodstock is free.
Woodstock is the Xbox thing that will show up cross-platform, and that's going to be free, but they won't get rid of... We don't know what's going to happen to Zune Music Pass.
Because they're moving away from Zune, from the Windows Phone thing, it almost seems like it makes sense for them to move away from Zune entirely. Because in Windows 8, it's not Zune, it's music and video.
How many bullets do they have to put in the Zune corpse before it finally goes down? Because we've declared it dead.
They need to drop that name or something. Because every time I hear Zune, I'm like, that didn't work out very well. Confusing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's free or not. David, do you guys know if it would be free?
I don't think we know for sure yet, but it is interesting that they're doing like the comparison continues to be with something like Spotify, and I would assume that making something like this free would be hard and probably not something Microsoft is going to do because it would involve a lot of ads with your music and stuff like that. I feel like with a situation like this, you'd rather just ask somebody to pay $5 or $10 a month and do it that way. Also, Woodstock is a great name, and I really hope they use that.
That's the thing with Microsoft. They actually come up with really good code names, and then they change it to Microsoft All Access Music Pass Service or something like that when they actually launch it. But I guess if they call it Xbox Music, that would be okay. Oh, it's not on the Xbox. So that might
Actually, there already is an Xbox Music tile, right? And when you go into your Xbox, there's music. So why?
And you get the Zune thing,
right? So then you're like, why am I going to music then Zune? Why wouldn't it just be music?
On the Xbox, it would make perfect sense to just absolutely.
That's the strongest brand they have right now. That's the other thing because people think Xbox. Most people, I still don't think general public think Microsoft. They think game console. They think Xbox. Oh yeah, I know that. That's the green one, but not Microsoft. Because you say Microsoft, they're like Windows. I know Windows. I know Office.
You don't think people associate Xbox, the brand, with Microsoft?
No, I don't.
I do.
That's like what they do with Zune, too.
I think I know what you're saying, which is there is a chunk of people who don't associate Xbox with Microsoft. I think there's a lot of people that do as well.
Right.
But I think there is a significant number who maybe aren't as into the computing side of things, but they love gaming, and they just think of it as the Xbox. They don't know who makes it.
Because if they did,
it is a strong brand. I agree with you.
If the general public knew that it was Microsoft, they'd be like, how come I can't put Office on it?
And you can with the new Xbox Office. No, that's
a
not
whole
true.
other
Although, I guess with SkyDrive and some docs and something or other, maybe you could be able to mix something up. You probably have to hack your Xbox to do it. More controversy surrounding the Google Drive out there. The terms of service are getting a lot of attention now. As we discussed on This Week in Google, the terms of service have not changed from Google Docs to Google Drive. But with the launch of a new program, everybody starts poking around on these things. And the terms of service for Google Drive say, when you upload or otherwise submit content to our services, you give Google and those we work with a worldwide license to use, host, store, reproduce, modify, create derivative works, such as those resulting from translations, adaptations, or other changes we make so that your content works better with our services. Communicate, publish, publicly perform. I don't want them performing any of my docs, but public display and distribute such content. The rights that you grant in this license are for the limited purpose, so they are limiting it, for the operating, promoting, and improving of our services and to develop new ones. This license continues even if you stop using our services, for example, for a business listing that you have added to Google Maps. And it goes on in a different part of the terms of service to say you retain ownership of any intellectual property rights you hold in the content you upload. What belongs to you stays yours. So they went out of their way to say, we're not trying to take ownership.
Well, but if they're using it in all these different ways, who really cares who owns it? It's like, we can do whatever we want with your data, but don't worry, it's still yours.
For the limited purpose of operating, promoting, and improving our services. Now, operating, I get.
Promoting?
Promoting is the one that bothers me.
That's the one that bothers me, too.
See, when I read this, the first thing I thought of was when you write anything, you're granted copyrights to it right away. So even if you don't register it, you have the rights to it. So now Google's saying, look, we're going to translate something you did in Spanish because you're collaborating with somebody else who wants to change it. That's a derivative work. So if they don't write this stuff to get around the copyrights, you can imagine somebody suing Google because somebody did this translation. Probably an unusual scenario, but they're protecting themselves with that. As for the whole promotion aspect, I could easily see Google go, look at how Tom Merritt used his Google Docs in a way we've never seen it before. That might be awful.
I don't want them doing that without my permission,
but
just because I use the service.
No,
exactly. That's what I don't like.
Well, you need to leave Google then.
No, that's not the point. The point is these are when you compare these to the terms of service of other places, they don't make you give away this right.
Right. The big difference, the issue with this is because this is Google Drive replacing Google Docs, and that was something where we used to create things versus just uploading our files to Dropbox or SkyDrive. This seems a little bit more troublesome. Kind of reminds me of the iBooks thing. When iBooks came out, people thought that Apple owned your works, and Apple was saying, no, we just own that version you do. We don't own the actual intellectual property underneath. So
I think the promoting here actually refers to showing people, hey, your friend on Google Plus, Iyaz Akhtar, also uses Google Drive. Would you like to share with him? And that's promoting the service and getting you to sign up and use it. I don't think they actually want to take my stuff and put it up without my permission. And in fact, Google says, look, we only want to do this so that we can operate the service. However, that's the problem, is these terms are written very loosely. We have to trust that Google's going to use them right. Whereas other terms, Ed Bott's got a great article up today comparing all the different terms of service, are very narrow. Even
Dropbox and SkyDrive say that we don't want anything to do with your files, your data.
Dropbox went through a lot of public flack, and that's why they added that language.
Right. Yeah, in fact, the language is, they call it your stuff. They define what your stuff is. It's just anything that you are uploading to Dropbox and taking down via the cloud. We don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. Also today, Wired was quoting Sundar Pichai, who's the SVP of Chrome and Apps, as saying, we are going to integrate Google Drive into the native file system of Chrome OS. And Scott Johnson, Google's product manager, verified that as well. All the core OS functionality in Chrome OS will use Google Drive as a place to store data, if that's what you opt into. So this Chrome OS is going to become is going to become the best use of Google Drive because it becomes your drive. Because Chrome OS is your web cloud operating system. Now you have a cloud drive to go with it.
As far as Chrome OS is concerned, this seems like a really good partnership. You don't need to store anything locally. You've got a bunch of computers all over the place.
Yeah, that was the big draw to Chrome OS, right? It was like every computer is your computer. You log in, you have access to it. And this is something I'm pretty sure I was harping on this. Like, they were going to rebrand Docs as Drive because you already could do this, and then they're going to integrate it into Chrome OS because I'm like, you need some place to put your stuff. So they've made it a lot easier, and especially what they've done with Chrome OS, that they're making it more a windowed system to have a file manager that's in a window. You can actually access your stuff in a familiar way. It's going to be interesting because, again, I mean, Chrome OS is what is this? Is that Linux based? Is Chrome OS Linux based, or is it just WebKit?
I don't
Android
recall, but I think it is a Linux. Yeah, I think it is a Linux derivative as well.
Because I was just thinking, because Google Drive is coming to Linux at some point. Because one of the managers said that.
I mean, there's so many different variants of Linux, but that's a good point. Teresa Wu, when questioned on Google Plus about a Linux client to support Google Drive, said, "Hang tight. There's going to be versions for open source based machines being worked on. But just because you make a variant that works on Ubuntu, for instance, doesn't mean it would work on Chrome OS. You got to do a lot of tweaks to it." Do you think, David, that Google Drive catches on? Does it help Chrome OS? Or are these terms of service, which really aren't that bad, but they're scaring a lot of people off? Is that going to affect the uptake of Google Drive?
So the terms of service thing, I think, is kind of odd because these are the same terms they have for every other product, and everybody, it's the 1 million strong against the new Facebook thing. Like, everybody likes to panic when there's this new thing that we don't totally understand how it's going to operate. But and Google's kind of gotten into this by having these one sets of rules about how they can use all your stuff across all these different services and apps and everything. But I think ultimately it'll come down to, like, Google can already do whatever it wants with my email, and there's nothing more sensitive in my documents than my email. So for me, it ultimately comes down to, like, if Google wants to use my stuff in, a Super Bowl ad, that's total corporate suicide, and I just don't think they're going to do that.
No, I don't think so either. And I think you nailed it, which is their problem is they unified the privacy policy, they unified the terms of service across platforms, and now they have to write it way too broadly to make sure they have all their bases covered. When you compare it to Amazon Web Services terms of service, which is pretty broad itself, it says, as between you and us, you or your licensors own all right, title, and interest in and to your content, except as provided in this section. We obtain no rights under this agreement from you or your licensors to your content, including any related intellectual property rights. You consent to our use of your content to provide the service offerings to you and any end users. We may disclose your content to provide the service offerings to you or any end users or to comply with the request of government. So they narrowly defined it. They said, look, you own everything, you control everything, except in so much as we want to provide this service. I guess you could argue that may be open-ended. They could start to interpret providing the service as all kinds of crazy things. But it's much less of an alarm bringer than, we have a license throughout the universe to publicly perform, the Microsoft Word doc that you uploaded to Google Drive.
I can't wait for them to perform my spreadsheets. Those are really exciting.
That would actually be pretty awesome. And yeah, I mean, I think there's pressure on Google not to do things that are crazy here. So it's easy to overreact. But they probably should tighten up the language there a little bit. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, GoToMeeting by Citrix. You know how hard it is to get people in a room to do a meeting. So you think, we'll just get on the phone, right? You know how hard it is to get everybody on the same page when you can't see them and you can't show them the document that you're talking about. That's where GoToMeeting comes in. We recommend GoToMeeting with HD Faces because it lets you meet face-to-face from anywhere in the world, even on the go from an iPad. With GoToMeeting by Citrix, all you need is a webcam. You click, you collaborate in the group, you get HD video, you can see the body language, you can look people in the eye, you can share documents and look at them in real time and collaborate them. You'll feel instantly connected even if you're thousands of miles apart. Plus, GoToMeeting is easy to set up and simple to use. I've used it for tons of calls and meetings here in the office, and it's the next best thing to being in the same room. And when you got 15 people strung out all around the world, this is the best thing that you can do. So check it out.
Rehab.
Huh?
Strung out.
Well, spread out around the world.
Sorry.
Start hosting your own face-to-face online meetings today with GoToMeeting. Our audience can try it for free for 30 days, so you don't have to take my word for it. Go give it a shot. Go to GoToMeeting.com. That's GoToMeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button and use the promo code TNT. That's GoToMeeting.com by Citrix. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. On to the World Series of Intellectual Property. Where probably the least interesting thing was the rest of Andy Rubin's testimony. He went back on the He went back up on the witness stand, and the only big line was, "We did not believe that we needed a license from Sun." That was the big worry, was that all these emails had shown that Andy Rubin thought they needed a license. And he said, "No, maybe I did write that, but that's not what I meant, and I don't believe we need a license." So now it's muddied back up. But actually, I think the cooler thing that came out of the trial today is what you guys at The Verge are doing. They found some choice findings from the court case. One involving Google wanting to subsidize the T-Mobile data plan to make it $9.99 a month. This was back in 2006 when they were first putting together their phone plans. Their idea was they would subsidize the data plan instead of the actual phone, and forego their commission that they would earn from sending customers to T-Mobile. So they said, look, we'll send the hordes from Google Search to T-Mobile to buy phones, but we won't take any money for that. Instead, you let anybody who signs up from Google get a $9.99 a month data plan for 15 megabytes a month. No, don't care? Nobody thought that was cool. All right. Fair enough.
I thought it was awesome.
Thank you, David.
I'm sorry. I thought you were asking David, so I was giving him a chance. I was trying to be nice.
It is a small amount of data, but it is also 2006. Why don't you think this ended up happening?
I don't know, honestly, but it for Google, it makes perfect sense. And I think was, in 2006, a great idea. Because, right, like the biggest problem for people who want to buy a smartphone is, well, I don't want to pay $30, $40, $50 a month for a data plan. But so if Google can say, well, hey, how about $10 a month? Like, you already pay that for texting, so just pay $10 more. And then Google gets a ton more people using smartphones, and Google wins because then we look at ads and they make Android phones and all that stuff. So it's a perfect system for Google. And it honestly, I can't really figure out why it didn't catch on, because I would think T-Mobile would jump all over that too, because they're like, well, it's still our bill. You're still paying us. Google's paying us the difference, so why not? It seems like a win-win.
It just reminds me that Google actually, with their old Chrome OS notebooks, gave you a free 100 megabytes with a 3G connection. I mean, this just shows that they constantly are in communications with wireless carriers to go, hey, look, you have this old plan. We have this different way of thinking. We can make this much cheaper. We can give away data this way, and our devices will be special. Because, I mean, when I saw this news, I was like, wow, this probably would have gotten me much more interested in Android devices in general, because that's a huge advantage when you see a $10 data plan. You're like, well, that's completely unusual compared to what's going on.
The carriers don't want to give up the power. That's really the key here. Is
but if their bottom line is the same, if Google is subsidizing what they're not getting from the end user, what does it matter?
Well, subsidizing by saying we won't take commission is different than saying we'll give you money. So the carrier may have not believed it would balance out. I don't know. Or they may have said, look, no, we think the way to lock in customers is low device prices. We're not going to sell $500 devices and then give you a cheap data plan. People aren't going to buy that. They may not have believed that. I don't know. Also, on The Verge, a mock-up of the proposed Google phone from 2006. At the time, Google bemoaned that basic phone user interfaces and the ability to integrate as a third party are still a barrier, and they told T-Mobile that Mountain View's expertise, that would be Google, combined with the T-Mobile's unlimited data plan would be a winner. You couldn't stop them. At that time, touchscreen support was not a requirement. Remember, this was the days before the iPhone. In fact, the baseline specs required only 2 soft menu keys. Although in these mock-ups here, they show some weird chiclety keyboard thing.
Kind of looks like the old Tweet Peak thing that was out for a while, or like the Palm Pre. Some of this looks very, very
like
similar.
Like a white BlackBerry to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like what has been done. We're just going to kind of put a Google logo on it. That's pretty much the thinking. Because there were touchscreen devices way before the iPhone. There was like all the Palm stuff. All the trios had a touchscreen with Styli, but you could still touch the screen, but Google wasn't into that at that point. This just looks somewhat embarrassing. I mean, these phones were in 2006. Yeah,
I mean, phones looked like this though. I mean, we were all
Let's find a
used
picture
to.
of Iyaz from 2006.
They have Google. Go for it. They have Google augmented reality glasses, right? That's what their big thing is. We're looking to the future.
Sure.
We have this great idea what the future is. But in 2006, this is what they thought the future looked like. Looked the same as everything else. It's like it's not as crazy as Google is now.
Yeah.
What did you guys at The Verge think when you saw these for the first time, David?
It's pretty funny, actually, and it lends a lot of credence to the claim that Apple really was the first to ever do this right, and Android kind of came right behind it. But like they were clearly heading in a different direction before they saw what was happening with the iPhone.
Well, that's an interesting point. Do you think this is somewhat evidence that Steve Jobs was right?
I mean, well, so the part to me that's the funniest is that Google was like, well, touchscreens, they're okay. We don't need them. They're not that great yet. Even while there's this great touchscreen device being worked on at Apple.
Right up the road.
And so it does seem like kind of giving into what Apple did and saying, well, okay, you did this right, so we're going to take the same idea and try to do it our own way. Whereas clearly they were in a totally different place before they saw it. And again, it could be pure coincidence, but it certainly doesn't seem that way.
Just as a side note, July 22nd, 2006, Iyaz Akhtar wrote a blog post called Bring Back the Cube.
Did I?
Can we read that out loud, please?
Dramatic reading.
The Mac Mini is a very nice piece of engineering.
Hey, I was just starting out. It was a long time ago. I was in law school. Give me a break.
No, actually, it's not that bad.
I also did not say anything about touchscreens.
I couldn't find any embarrassing pictures of you. That's the best I could do.
There are lots.
So there you go.
Just keep looking.
Still, that's good. That's a good glimpse into the past.
All right, on to Sprint with their earnings report. That one is just a repeat. They could have ran the earnings report from Q4. Q1 2012, Sprint lost $863 million, 29 cents a share. The company posted a net loss of $439 million, generated $7.2 billion in revenue. The revenue was actually up 7% year over year. The loss was attributed to depreciation related to the shutdown of Nextel. That's still a drag on them. Average revenue per user went up 6.9% to $4.03. They added 1.1 million net subscribers. Most of them are postpaid. The ones that you don't want, not the contract signing ones. 44% of their iPhone activations were to new customers, so that did help jump some of those net subscribers. And they announced a couple of really interesting things. Boost Mobile and Virgin Mobile customers, which are parts of Sprint, will be getting 4G, although it's WiMAX that they're actually getting. So Sprint, while they move their brand to LTE, is going to take their sub-brands and move them to WiMAX. Because remember, they're using shutting down IDEN to make room for the LTE.
I don't think that's such a bad idea. They have the WiMAX technology. They're licensing all this stuff. And the thing is, when you buy these devices from Boost or you buy them from Virgin Mobile, you're more likely to go, yeah, I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting into. I'm not locked in for 2 years. I own the device. I can use it for however long I want. And when the technology changes, you're more willing to change your device. Instead of getting locked in and go, oh, I got a WiMAX device. This is going to be great for 2 years, right? You're going to have WiMAX for 2 years, right? You don't really worry about that when you buy it outright.
Also, even though Sprint, there are a lot of losses in this quarter, and it's a trend that Sprint has had for a while, the average revenue per user jumping up over 6% is what they said. Listen, we know that we have to put a lot of we have to make a lot of investments in the iPhone, and the whole thing's going to be really expensive, but we're going to get that money back through the users because they're going to end up spending more money with us. So it does show a good trend for them, as long as they could keep it up for another 4 quarters or so.
If they can dig out of this Nextel hole and the holes with Clear, which they're a part owner with. They also said that the next generation of iPhone, if it arrives with LTE, will still continue to offer a no-strings unlimited plan. So they're using that as their differentiator. They are the last holdout in the United States with an unlimited data plan. David, do you think Sprint can hold on?
I think having a no-strings unlimited LTE plan is a pretty big differentiator for them, and especially now that data plans continue to kind of go down and down and down in their cap and get more and more expensive. For them to be able to say, if you really want to use your phone, go for it, and we're totally fine with it, is a nice thing. But I think at this point, even if they can, switch to LTE, and I think Sprint's plan is to be in 6 markets, and that's not, they're a long way behind in that. But even if they can get there, they're going to have a lot of convincing to do of just regular customers that they're a real competitor now, because I feel like they've fallen in most people's minds a long way behind Verizon and AT&T and even T-Mobile as like, where do I go if I need a phone?
Yeah, it's almost like they're off the radar, and that unlimited data is the one thing that can get them back on people's minds, is to be like, oh, where can I get unlimited data? Well, there's only one choice now, at least in the majors. So, yeah, and they definitely need that LTE. I agree with you there. Finally, according to Michael Larabelle of the IDG blog Phoronix, on Twitter yesterday, Valve, this is the quote, #Valve, does have Linux games coming, plus other very positive Linux plans. I'll briefly post some screenshots tonight. He didn't post it that evening, but he did finally get around to posting, and he said he was going to post a video today as well. Valve has a working version of the Source engine running natively on Linux, he says. He saw it demoed on Ubuntu, and the first game that was being demoed on the system was Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah, I think this makes me think of when AMD is actually introducing more drivers for Linux, because there's that rumor that Valve was working on hardware and actually building. They've talked about wearable computers, but a lot of people think they're going to make an actual console, and this would make it a lot easier, a lot cheaper than licensing Windows for every time you want to go ahead and sell a Steam box, as it was called at least at the time. If you can run it on Linux and there's enough support for certain drivers, you can actually have a really powerful gaming machine without having to have that Windows lock-in. I mean, the thing is, Windows is very good for this, but this opens up a huge world of possibilities for Valve. Yeah,
David, are you a gamer? Do you use Steam?
So I thought I was a gamer until I started working at The Verge and realized that there's like a whole nother level of how it goes. But
you got Polygon to deal with now, right? So yeah.
Well, yeah, it's going to get out of control. It really is. But no, I think it's really exciting. Steam in general, I think, is super exciting, and the idea of being able to have a kind of cross-platform gaming system is really, really important. And Linux is this kind of vocal minority, and as Iyaz was saying, it does open up new sort of hardware possibilities, but it also just continues to broaden the scope of Steam, which I think is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I do think that it would be cool to see Steam hardware that's not indicated by Laravel, except in sort of these vague. And there's other cool Linux news coming from Valve. But I know Linux fans have wanted Steam for a long time.
And so that was kind of going to be my question. I mean, that's why the hardware is cool. I'm not saying that Valve shouldn't create its own hardware, but I feel like it's a little bit of like a backwards thinking of the way that we can play games now.
Well, there's two different things to consider there. It's cool that Steam, the software, would come to Linux, because Linux fans have said, look, I'd love to love Valve, but they don't make anything I can run on my devices. So the idea of finally getting a Steam client is cool. And then the idea of Steam coming up with their own hardware is cool. It's kind of an extra little nifty hipster cool for the Linux hippies out there if it runs on Linux. But it also makes it make more sense that Steam would actually create a box if they used Linux, which is, as Iyaz made the point, more open and cheaper. And
then it's for anybody, not just somebody who's already deep into the Linux OS world.
They don't have to be beholden to Microsoft, to make a deal for licenses for all of the operating systems that they put in all the boxes.
The other thing is Steam could just roll out their own distribution. If they're going to run on Linux, they could just be like, you know what, we're going to customize this to really work on this version.
Exactly.
But if they want to sell to more and more people, of course they could make a version that works with a vast majority of Linux machines.
All right, let's move on to the news. Facebook is teaming up with McAfee, Norton, Sophos, and Trend Micro to launch an antivirus marketplace, allowing users to download 6-month free trials of software. Facebook will also expand its URL blacklist system to incorporate the malicious URL databases from McAfee, Norton, Microsoft, Sophos, and Trend Micro. No mention of any of the free antivirus providers as part of this deal. No AVG, no Avira, no Avast. It's all for making money.
Look! Up in the sky.
What's there?
It's a bird.
It's a bird?
It's a plane?
No.
No, it's a Galaxy Note with T-Mobile branding.
I thought you were setting up for
Wars.
Oh man, I actually did. I was tricked. I was like, whoa, I missed that in the dock.
Keeping him on his toes. Yeah, I need to get my eyes checked. Gosh, that's a Galaxy Note up there. TMO News posted images of the Note, and not only did it indeed have T-Mobile branding, but it also had T-Mobile apps. This just adds to the leaks as screenshots and user agent string data also point to the Note heading to T-Mobile.
A DigiTimes report says that the next Nexus phone will be made by Samsung again, so why didn't Google use HTC? After all, it did make the original Nexus 1. Well, DigiTimes also says that HTC is busy with Facebook, and the two are working together to build a phone that could hit the market in the third quarter of this year at earliest.
The source code to VMware's ESX hypervisor has been leaked. Don't panic. A hacker calling himself Hardcore Charlie. I kind of like that nickname.
Great name.
Posted the code on Pastebin on April 8th, and VMware has since confirmed that the leak is in fact real. Hardcore Charlie says he got the source code by breaching the corporate network of the China National Electronics Import-Export Corporation. That just sounds like some kind of made-up name from an action movie, but it's a real company. VMware says that it is investigating and will provide updates.
We've talked a bit about CISPA in the past. A lot of people aren't too fond of CISPA, and neither is the White House's Office of Management and Budget, which said that the bill could undermine Americans' privacy and civil liberties. The House said it will modify CISPA's language tomorrow to narrow the definition of cyber threat information, but the ACLU still takes issue with the proposed changes, saying the amendments also still allow this information to be sent directly to the National Security Agency and other military offices instead of keeping civilians in control of Americans' internet info.
We know you can never get enough of that Oracle Google spat, so here's some more. Oracle would like to assert a patent against Google. Well, here's the snag. The patent was invalidated, and Oracle had already agreed to drop the patent from the case as long as the invalidation was not overturned before the trial. Trial's already started, but then the patent rejection was overturned. Oracle claims that, hey, the patent part of the case hasn't started, so maybe we can get another chance. And Google's like, no, we don't like that.
Solidoodle is a company, and it's introducing a $500 3D printer. Company is headed by Sam Cervantes, formerly the COO of MakerBot. The Solidoodle printer is pre-assembled, and according to Cervantes, a 200-pound man could stand on the printer while it's printing, and it wouldn't break. I assume is what he means by that.
Yes.
I mean, 201 pounds, though, stay off that thing.
Popular Chinese microblogging service Sina Weibo has deleted several accounts, including that of Li Delin, who is the senior editor of Capital Week, a Chinese business magazine. Li's post led to rumors of a coup in Beijing. The service announced that criminal elements have used Sina Weibo to create and spread malicious political rumors. It's not known whether the move was brought on by government pressure or not.
The FCC approved AT&T's transfer of AWS spectrum to T-Mobile. The transfer is part of T-Mobile's consolation prize after it failed its quest to become one with AT&T. T-Mobile gets more spectrum in 128 markets and ought to help the company build out its LTE network.
Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Now, Leo Laporte, our dear leader here at TWiT, is off in Norway at the Nordic Lights Festival.
Correct.
Which does that have to do with the Northern Lights?
Well, Northern
somehow?
Lights typically can only be seen during the winter.
Oh, so no, it doesn't.
So no, we're not in the right season. But what that's all about is the lights that never go down because now they're so far north that
the sun doesn't set.
You've got persistent sun.
Forget
pervasive
the British
sun,
Empire.
You know what I mean.
They get it all the whole summer long.
Yeah.
Well, Project Ether can film the Northern Lights, which is totally different, by sending a GoPro camera on a balloon up 100,000 feet into the atmosphere.
That is awesome.
So we just need to run this video because the audio listeners, you're seeing something that it's hard to describe this.
I think a lot of people have heard Northern Lights. Okay, it's like a constellation that you can see really well, but it's more than that.
No, it's the Aurora Borealis.
Actually, it's a lot like a lot of those the default abstract art things in the Mac OS X.
I was going to say, it looks like a screenshot or a screensaver.
One of those default backgrounds.
Have you ever seen the Northern Lights, David?
I haven't. I'm like, can you put that video back up? That was kind of awesome.
It's pretty mesmerizing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I want that to be my screensaver, and it's pretty amazing. And GoPro cameras are just the best.
Not only are they awesome, but they their marketing is great because they've always got these incredible stunts that people are doing. I mean, they could have used a variety of cameras, but it's always the GoPro, and you're like, that's the cool camera. That's where you can do all the neat stuff up in space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people buy these cameras and just immediately go, okay, what insane thing can I do with this camera? And it's awesome. They come up with the coolest stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. GoPro is definitely has got the cool kids in their corner. All right, let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's episode of Tech News Today, Ford, featuring available voice-activated Sync App Link. Lets you control apps on your smartphone with your voice while you drive safely. Sounds like something that just isn't a good idea, right? But no, it's absolutely safe. Sync App Link lets you use voice control. So you just talk to Pandora. You say, play Tech News Today on Stitcher, and it plays. You read your Twitter feed with OpenBeak or listen to Slacker Radio or iHeartRadio. New apps are being rolled out all the time. Sync Destinations is one. You can get access to navigation and directions through your compatible smartphone. NPR gives you the latest breaking news and play your favorite NPR programs. iHeartRadio Thumb Play service using voice commands. You can find your save stations, skip to the next song, even give a thumbs up to a song, just like in Pandora, all with your voice. Your hands are on the wheel, your eyes are on the road, and you're controlling the apps with AppLink. And AppLink is built on an API platform. That means developers are bringing new apps to the platform all the time without you having to update the AppLink software in the vehicle. So you just download the new app once it's ready. On your phone, Ford has a Sync mobile application developer network that enables developers to contact Ford about their app ideas, allowing Ford to bring them to you faster. You can expect to see a whole lot more of these Sync-enabled mobile apps coming into your phone's store so you can take them along for the ride in your Ford vehicle. Learn more about Sync, AppLink, and other technologies at Ford.com/technology. And now it's time to learn about the calendar.
There's so much to know. There are dates and everything. HTC One S went on sale today. In fact, David reviewed it. So if you go to his article at The Verge, you'll learn all about his thoughts and feelings.
Any good, David?
On the One S.
It's fantastic. It's easily the best phone T-Mobile has ever had.
Jason Howell is emphatically nodding.
I completely agree. I actually just put up my review today as well. Completely agree.
Sprint is taking pre-orders for the HTC Evo 4G LTE. That's real. It's the acronym phone. On May 7th, SpaceX is launching its Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft on May 7th, headed for the International Space Station. They were originally going to launch next week, but postponed it to give engineers more time to complete some pre-flight testing and analysis. Launch is set for 6:38 a.m. Pacific time, weather permitting, at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. Nokia has targeted May 14th for the Lumia 900 United Kingdom release. HSPA Plus connectivity, not the LTE that's available in the AT&T variant. Nokia says that we got to ramp up production of the Lumia 90. All the capacity is currently committed to those LTE-equipped American models that are going to AT&T customers. So demand for the phone has exceeded expectations, says Nokia, although we still don't have numbers.
The Nokia 900. You said 90 by mistake. Just
That's a really old one from 2006.
Stop an email. Yeah, the N90, right? Yeah. I remember that. That was a great phone.
Yeah, it's exact 2006. Things were different then.
I know. Iyaz had more hair.
Yeah.
I had less beard.
I was young and smart.
Yeah, you still are.
Eh.
Oh, stop.
Swiss cheese.
On to what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Swiss cheese sounds tasty.
I know.
We got a couple of voicemails today to get to. First of all, one about the clouds effect on phone storage.
Hi, it's Stuart in San Diego here. I was considering calling about a subject I heard Friday. We're talking about cloud drive. Then I heard on Tuesday's show the Google Drive. And am I the only one out there that thinks about this? Because as we're getting more and more of these cloud drives and less phones are getting more like the iPhone and having no SD card slot, there's more money that needs to be spent in order for storage. I guess I'm a little old-fashioned, but I'd really love to have my 32-gigabyte SD card in my phone and not have to worry about cloud storage. I'd like cloud storage to be the icing and keep my cake at home and eat it, too. Love the show. Bye.
I believe that's Stuart, the forklift driver. Maybe he's not driving a forklift anymore, but he's still Stuart. And this is the ongoing question. There are people like Stuart who are like, oh, no, you can have my data in your cloud when you pry it from my cold, dead local storage. Other people are like myself are like, you know what? It's just as dangerous on your local storage as it is in the cloud. You know, it's all about who you trust and how much you want to trust it. David, where do you come down on the cloud storage issue?
So I'm all in. Like, honestly, I use Dropbox. I'm using Drive. I probably should use 3 or 4 others just for the sake of it. But at this point, it's become such an integral part of what I do, being able to get at any document or edit it or whatever, wherever I am, that there are definitely privacy concerns. And I also think it's interesting that as we use our phones more and more, we kind of need this have it everywhere storage less and less because you just do it all on your phone. And if that's the eventual goal, it's like, well, why not just have storage on your phone and have that be everything? But for now, I'm sold. I'm hooked. I can't imagine life without Dropbox.
And you don't worry about your data being stolen by the corporations?
I mean, I do. And for, particularly sensitive things, which, I don't have that many of, I guess. Maybe I'm unique in that way. But it's that basically if something happens with my data that's wrong, again, it's total suicide. Like if Dropbox leaks my document to somebody, I'm going to tell everyone I know and hope that I can totally ruin Dropbox. And so I don't think they're going to do that. And again, there are always these issues, but for me, the benefits so far outweigh the possible issues. And as long as I'm careful about, changing passwords every once in a while or using one password or something like that, and Dropbox lets you manage devices that you have connected to your account. And so as long as I'm vigilant about doing that, I feel good enough about it that I'm not too worried.
Jason and I were actually talking about this because I think the Galaxy Nexus, they dropped the SD card, the micro SD card slot, and I think the HTC phone you tested also
the
did.
1S also has no SD card slot with 16 gigs of onboard storage, but then you also get the 25 gigs of Dropbox storage, for 2 years. So it is kind of like they're trading one for the other.
Even if you're not worried about the security aspect, if you just have a lot of content that you want on your phone when you're offline, you seem to be losing that option because you can't put in more storage if you want it.
Yeah, but SD cards always come with limitations, or they have write issues. You can't put certain apps on them sometimes. I mean, I think that's been solved mostly with Ice Cream Sandwich, but there's always issues with the SD card storage. I want to have internal storage if I'm going to have local storage. I don't want SD card slots because it never works seamlessly.
I haven't had that issue with media and content, but I can see the app thing was a little bit fishy.
You've never had an SD card fail on you?
Not yet.
Oh, well, you live in La Vida SD card.
I think no matter what kind of, the SD card or not, it's local storage is, you have access to it. You certainly don't need to be connected to the internet or the cloud or anything like that. But it's hard for me to manage. When I have pieces of information on a bunch of local drives, and even if they're all in the same room, they're not all available on the same machine, I'm a mess. I need someone to help me manage, and the cloud does that.
Yeah, I think a sensible combination is probably the best way to go.
You want local backups, of course.
Got another call about Google Drive and grandfathering in the plans.
Here we go.
Hey, TNT crew. This is Jamie from San Diego. I was listening to you guys talk about Google Drive and the storage prices. The interesting thing is, when I signed up for Google Drive, my 20 gigs of Picasso storage for $5 a year actually applied to it. So I guess that I'm grandfathered in for 25 gigs for $5 a year, which is actually the best deal out of everyone there. Just thought I'd throw that in the pool of discussion. And thanks for the great show. I've been a listener since the first episode.
Rewarded for using Picasso.
Buying ahead, just like with SkyDrive. If you were a SkyDrive user and you didn't have, you could opt into 25 gigabytes for free instead of getting stuck to 7. If you paid for Picasso early on, you're getting grandfathered in for really cheap, $5 a year for 25 gigabytes.
That's going to make Tony feel a lot better because at first he thought he was going to have to pay the new higher price.
I don't think he was paying yet, so that's why he was very unhappy because he was about to, but then he changed the plan, so he can't get grandfathered in.
That's what happened to me with SkyDrive. I thought I had an account, and I guess I didn't. So they're like, it's 7 or it's nothing.
I had one document in my SkyDrive account. That's all it takes.
Yeah,
me too.
Last email comes from Bob, or Captain Bob, if you see him in chat. Said, just an FYI, I found out this morning you can't put SkyDrive on a PC that has Windows XP. I know, but both my PCs have XP, which runs very well on them. I then read a review on Google Drive. It does work on XP. Why wouldn't Microsoft make their SkyDrive app work on XP?
Because trying to put a bullet in XP?
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of software that works on XP.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there are a lot of people who don't want to let go of XP. And even though it's not going to be updated and it's not going to be supported, and the next couple of years are a great time to get off of XP, for all the people who are still on it, then they'll just go over to Google. Instead of SkyDrive.
It doesn't actually stop people from using XP. It stops people from using SkyDrive.
Yeah. They'll say, oh, it's not compatible. I don't know. Microsoft.
David, do you
did it again.
Anybody at The Verge using XP?
I hope not. I really do.
It's pretty stable.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It is stable. That's true. But Windows 7 is a great operating system, and a lot of folks have used it, and it works really well. And I think it would be odd if Microsoft was trying to kill XP because it's sort of pointless to try and do, right? It would be more likely if they're like, well, it doesn't work on Vista. Sorry,
it actually works on XP
Vista
and 7,
lower.
but not Vista.
Right. Yeah, they're just like, let's pretend that didn't happen.
Seriously. All right, well, that's it for this show. Thanks to all of our subredditors at our subreddit technewstoday.reddit.com that put in the links and help us decide what kind of stuff we want to cover on each and every show. Go there, make your voice heard, whether you submit a link or just vote stuff up or down. It lets us know what kind of stories you would like us to cover each and every day. David, thank you so much for joining us. Great to meet you. Great to have you on the show. Keep up the good work on the reviews over there at The Verge, and let people know where they can find your work and what kind of stuff you got coming up.
Well, we're at TheVerge.com, which you may have guessed. And I don't know how much I can say without getting in trouble, but we've got some really cool long-form features coming, some really interesting looks at things you wouldn't necessarily think about as everyday technology, but that are actually happening all the time. And so we've got some, you're going to want to set aside like 3 afternoons to read these things, but they're really great, and I'm really excited for them.
That's great, actually. It's one of the things that has been missing in tech journalism. There are a few folks that do it really well. Wired, Salon, Ars Technica, and I'm glad to see The Verge is getting in that business as well, because there's some really good stuff that you guys are doing over there. I really enjoy reading it.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate that.
All right, folks, you can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call and leave us a voicemail. We had a couple great ones today. Join in. Keep them short, and they're likely to get played on the show. 260-TNT-SHOW is the phone number. Justin Robert Young joins us tomorrow. We'll see you then. 2006. Which one's Iyaz?
Yeah, the wax statue. Actually, me.
That's a wax statue of Iyaz Akhtar?
Yeah, they actually had one.
Whoa, where is that?